What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Buck3D's YouTube channel. This is going to be step 3 in our beginner's guide to 3D printing. In this video, we're going to be going over how to move objects, rotate objects, scale objects, and add primitives. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is open up Bambu Studio, and we're going to add our first primitive. We're going to go to the blank plate, right-click, go to Add Primitive. You're going to see a bunch of different options here. We're going to start out with just a 3D Benchy, which is a great benchmark to making sure that your printer is printing right with the right filament. We're going to learn how to actually move the object around the plate. So there's a couple different ways to do this. We can either select the object, make sure it has that white highlight around it, and just drag it and move it around the plate. Now, this is really easy, especially when you have a lot of objects on the plate and you're kind of quickly move them off. So for example, if I were to copy and paste this, I could just move one off the screen, and then I have a single plate with one benchy. Now, another way is to use the arrows at the top or select the M shortcut key. And what that's going to do is allow you to move the object linear. So the reason that this is helpful is because if we can line them up correctly, it's a lot easier to move them straight onto each other than it is to kind of just freehand it, and hopefully you can line it up correctly. Now you notice I move my screen a little bit, and by doing that, just hold the left click button and it'll let you kind of revolve around the object. And if you right click, it'll let you move side to side. Now the reason that's helpful is because a lot of times if you have this move menu up, the arrow will get hidden behind that menu and you can't see it to drag it. So what I would do is I would just move it sideways and then drag the object up and down. Now, one thing nice about the arrow key move option is that I can actually move the object up and down with the Z axis. So for example, if I want to move this object up, you can see that, but it's going to snap right back to the plate. Now, the reason for that is because it wants to make sure it's always starting the first layer on the object. But what's cool about it is that you can actually cut the object very easily by just dragging the Z axis straight down. And now this object is cut in half. And if I go to preview it, it will allow me to print it just like that. Okay, so next we're going to move on to rotating the object. First, we're going to resnap the object to the plate. And you're going to see there is a square with an arrow revolving around it. That's the rotate option. And you can also press the R shortcut key. That's going to bring up a bunch of circles around the object, showing you which plane it's going to be rotating it on. So we have our x-axis, we have our y-axis, and our z-axis. So you'll see it's kind of spun around really weird, and it's not going to be a good print. We're going to need a ton of supports. So in order to revert it back to the original way, you just click this reset option, and that will bring it back to how we spawned it in for the first time when we went to add our primitive. If we go back to the standard area, it's going to have this flat surface. Now, another way to quickly move the object is using the Lay on Face feature, or the F key. This shows you all the different faces on an object and lets you select that face, which will then flip it the way you have it selected. So if I were to select this one, it's going to go upside down. If I go back to the original way, I'm going to select that. If I select a side option, it's going to make it all tilted. So in this case, we're going to use the bottom. Now, a lot of times Bambu Studio is actually going to know how to arrange the object better than you will. So if we have the object currently on its side, we can right-click the plate and go to Auto Rotate. And you'll see that will automatically rotate the object back to how we had it, because this is the way that Bambu Studio thinks it will print the best. Okay, last and most important feature is the scale feature. So if I go over to this square with the arrow pointing up to the top right, you're going to see the scale option. It's going to come up with a bunch of boxes. We're going to have our x-axis, our y-axis, and our z-axis. Now you see how that kind of deformed the object and it made it ununiform. Now you'll see I have uniform scale selected, but it overrides it when you actually select the squares yourself and start to drag it. The only way that uniform will work is if you go on the top here and start typing the amounts. So if I were to want to scale this object to 200% or double the size, I would type 200, push enter, and now it's going to double the size in every direction, making it uniform. Now, if I were to do the same thing, but ununiform, I would select that box, go to 100, which should bring it back to the standard size, but it's not going to be uniform. Only the x-axis is back to the normal size. So I would have to type in 100 on all of these to get the original benchy size that we had. Now you'll see on the right side here, I typed in 200%, and that's why it increased double the size. That's because this top area is the percentage of how it's scaling, and the bottom is by millimeters. So if you see, if I were to scale this object up 200%, you're going to see all of the millimeter sizes change as well, because obviously those are scaling with that percent. So it's really helpful when you go to the bottom size area and you actually start to size the object using the millimeters, because then you can get your exact dimensions. But again, if you're having problems where you're going to type in 60 millimeters and you're wondering why the object is changing in every direction, that's because you have uniform scale selected. Okay, that's going to wrap up step 3 of our beginner's guide on how to 3D print. If you guys have any questions on how to move, scale, or rotate the object, leave them in the comment section down below and make sure to subscribe.